Antonio Trillanes in Manila. Welcome to Hard Talk.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you very much for inviting me.
We speak at a difficult time for your country. In Marawi, in Mindanao, in the south of the Philippines, you have a national emergency with a town which for weeks has faced siege because it's been, in essence, taken over by jihadist gunmen. The president says this is a national emergency. It is time for the country to unify in the face of the threat. Do you agree with him?
Well, I agree that what is happening in Marawi is a national crisis. It is something that we should deal with decisively. But I feel that the armed forces historically have faced more difficult challenges before, and they can overcome this challenge once again. And I have no doubt that the armed forces of the Philippines will subdue the Maute group.
Yes. Now, the finance minister just a couple of days ago made a very clear point of associating, as you put it, the Maute group, the jihadists who are in Marawi, associating them with drugs crime. He said there's no doubt a lot of the money they make, the way they operate, comes out of their involvement in organized drugs trafficking. Do you agree with that?
Well, probably that is the case. But the question is, for the past year that they unleashed this deadly war on drugs, how come they did not touch these suspected drug lords who are supporting the Maute?
The finance minister, again, in an important speech just the other day, said it is time for the country to back a president who wants to see a Philippines where obedience to the law is not optional. He's imposed martial law in the area around Marawi, and there is talk that he may extend the area under martial law. You've called this a national crisis. I'm just wondering whether you support him at this time of crisis.
We support the claim that what's happening in Marawi is a national crisis. In terms of the reach of the Maute group, they can wreak havoc in the whole country in terms of activities that may be deadly to the Filipino public. But in addressing this threat of terrorism, a martial law is not the cure, because it will affect the way of life of the Filipino, and at the same time it will affect negatively the economy of our country. My prescription was to enhance the capability of the intelligence community and our law enforcement agencies so that we can accurately pinpoint the terrorist cells without affecting the way of life of the public.
Isn't the truth, Senator Trillanes, that the Filipino public elected Duterte to the presidency because they wanted a tough guy? They wanted a guy who could impose order on the Philippines. And if one looks back at the situation when he took over, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency stated last year that 92% of districts in Manila, for example, were affected by drugs, the overwhelming drug of choice being crystal meth. Your country was in a parlous state. Drugs crime was at the center of it, and that is why Duterte was voted in to deal with it.
Yes, he created actually his own crisis. Let me just go back to that premise. 98% of the districts in Metro Manila, but for the whole country, only 27% of the barangays, as we call it, are affected or influenced by illegal drugs. And in terms of national statistics, we only have 1.8% of the population that has used illegal drugs. Most of it are marijuana, compared to the global average of 5% of the population. So in fact, our drug problem is not as bad as it seems. While we agree that it should be addressed, but it is not the primary or the only problem in our country.
Are you a Democrat, Senator Trillanes?
Yes, as I am from the Nationalista Party.
No,
but
I didn't
yes,
mean in terms of party
I am
affiliation. I just
Democrat
meant in
in
terms of
essence.
your commitment to democracy. Because it
Yeah.
seems to me fairly clear that Duterte, whatever you think of him, was straightforward with the public. His platform was quite clear. I'm just going to give you one quote from his campaign. He said, "Forget the laws on human rights. If I make it to the presidential palace, I will do just what I did as mayor in Davao. You drug pushers, you hold up men and do nothings, you'd better get out because I will kill you. I'll dump you into Manila Bay and I'll fatten all the fish with your bodies." That was his platform, and he won a clear victory.
Yes, but during the campaign, the public just thought that this is just rhetoric to make the campaign speeches more dramatic. And we have a set of laws. It doesn't mean that he said that during the campaign and he was voted into office just the same. It doesn't mean it will give him the license to kill our own people. He should still be made accountable for his actions outside the law.
Do you think his war on drugs is working?
Definitely not. As I mentioned, only the poor people, suspected users and drug pushers are being killed. Running total at least would be more than 9,000 already. But he has yet to touch the big-time drug lords, which are already mentioned in the list of various law enforcement agencies.
It's not easy for me to judge, but looking at the comments made by members of the public in Manila to news agencies, they're saying things like, the streets are safer now. Here in the Philippines, we needed a ruler with an iron fist. These are quotes from the general public. That seems to be the mood. The ratings for Duterte still remain high, 75% approval rating. I'm just wondering whether your comments, which are constantly negative, are out of tune with ordinary Filipino opinion.
Well, the numbers that you mentioned are the latest numbers way back in March. But if you look at where his numbers were when he assumed office, it went as high as 92%. So in less than a year, it went down by 17 percentage points.
Well,
and I believe the numbers,
believe me, Senator, if a Western politician could command 75% approval ratings, they would regard that as the happiest day of their life, believe me.
Well, I agree. But the issue here is the bulk of the Filipino public are not really aware of what's happening on the ground. It's the propaganda machine of the Duterte administration is very, very effective. And bulk of the Filipino public are just busy with day-to-day living that they don't really get to know the magnitude of the damage that Duterte has done. That's why historically in the Philippines, the popularity ratings go down as the information have radiated to the general public. And I believe the numbers would continue to go down as they know more and more about the real situation.
Right. Well, talking about the real situation, you personally seem very committed to trying to bring legal action against President Duterte for his past actions, particularly going back to his long time as mayor of Davao in Mindanao. Now, is it indeed true that you are still offering your help to an individual called Arturo Las Canas, who worked in the so-called death squads that were operated in Davao during the time of the now president's running of the city? There's some confusion about whether you personally have intervened to safeguard Mr. Las Canas. What's the situation?
I assisted Mr. Las Canas when he appeared in the Senate. We provided security for him while he was there, while he was testifying. But when the state filed cases against him, and now he is technically a fugitive, I personally do not know where his whereabouts. But here's the thing. We already have a witness that would testify. Yeah.
I mean, you've made great play of his testimony, and we should remember it's very dramatic. I mean, back in April, I think he testified that he heard Mr. Duterte say, and he was talking, of course, of drugs criminals, suspects, throw them in the ocean or the quarry, make it clean, make sure there are no traces of the bodies. There was one particular story where Mr. Las Cañas claimed that Duterte had signed off on the murder of the pregnant wife and 4-year-old child of one particular drugs crime suspect. Do you really believe this testimony, and do you believe it adds up to something which should lead to legal action against Mr. Duterte now that he's president?
Most definitely. I believe his testimony, and in fact, even the state believed him enough that they used the testimony in the Senate to file cases against him.